What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be taking a look at the intros for the 2025 Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start by talking about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This one's going to be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain's coming off finishing inside the top 15 at Phoenix Raceway. Showed some pretty solid speed at times at Phoenix. He looks for a really good run this week and looks to pick up his first Cup Series win of 2025. He showed really good speed last week. We'll see what Ross Chastain can do this weekend with the Trackhouse Racing team at a track that they have been pretty good at historically over the last couple years. Up next up with the 2 car for Team Penske. This will once again be driven by Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric's been up to a really solid start in 2025 outside of basically almost getting suspended a couple weeks ago at Circuit of the Americas. But Austin Cindric's shown some pretty solid speed, including leading laps at Phoenix this past week. He started off on a much better note and looks to continue that momentum to this weekend at Las Vegas. While he hasn't been historically that good here in the NASCAR Cup Series, he looks to turn around and do really good this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Up next up with the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing. This will once again be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon's coming off finishing inside the top 15 at Phoenix Raceway and has shown some decent speed at times throughout the 2025 year. Though I still think RCR is a little bit behind, especially with the number 3 car. We're going to a track where Austin Dillon actually, I believe, got a top 10 last year, was running inside the top 10 in a lot of the event. I look for Austin Dillon to show some decent speed as he looks to pick up his first Cup win of 2025 this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next up with a 4 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson's coming off, unfortunately, getting caught up in a crash this past weekend at Phoenix, but still ended up finishing the race around 25th or 26th in the event. He's going to track where he showed really good speed in the spring as he had top 5 and top 10 pace throughout the event, especially at his hometown track. He looks to run really well this weekend and looks to potentially get a top 10 like his teammate Zane Smith did last weekend at Phoenix Raceway. Up next up with the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's been up to an up and down start in 2025. He, of course, finished in 3rd place and nearly won the Cup Series race at Phoenix. We're going to one of Kyle Larson's best tracks as he's defending winner of the spring race at this track and has won 2 of the last 3 races at Las Vegas. I expect Larson to be a major factor for the win. He's probably the favorite, honestly, going into this weekend with how good he's been at Las Vegas. He'll have a great chance and opportunity to pick up that first win of 2025. Up next up with the 6 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski's been off to not the best start in 2025 as Brad only has 1 top 20 finish in the first 4 races of this season. Luckily for Brad, we're going to a track where RFK has shown some pretty good speed in the last couple years. Brad's led laps the last couple times they've been here, I believe, and I think he will be a factor for a really strong run. They've had good speed, they just haven't had the finishes to show for. Brad Keselowski looks to run really strong with this organization this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next up with the 7 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Justin Haley. Justin Haley, unfortunately, is coming off after qualifying up front. He got caught up in a crash and incident, and that big one that happened is he kind of was one of the causes behind the big one. We're going to a track where Justin Haley hasn't been that great, but he's going to be in the same car that showed really good speed with Corey LaJoie last year. So I can see this team having a shot to maybe get a top 10. He looks for a really good run and looks for a really big bounce back performance this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next up with the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing. This will once again be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is off to a much better start in 2025 compared to 2024 as he had 3 top 10 finishes in the first 4 races. And last spring, Kyle Busch had one of the fastest cars in the field before he had a pit road issue at the end of the race. I think Kyle Busch will be a factor for a top 10 like he has been, and I can see him being a factor to win this weekend. If RCR could bring the same speed they had in the spring last year, and a little bit more than that, I could see Kyle Busch being a factor considering he nearly won at Kansas at the end of last year. Up next, how about the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott probably had his weakest performance of the season last week at Phoenix Raceway, but we're going to a track where Chase Elliott was actually fast before getting caught up in a crash that involved Tyler Reddick going airborne and flipping upside down. I think Elliott will be somewhat of a factor. Yes, he's never won this track in the NASCAR Cup Series, but he can definitely change that considering Hendrick Motorsports has been dominant at this track in recent years. He'll look to win his first Cup race of 2025, a points main race, I should say, this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next up with the 10 car for Colleague Racing. This one's going to be driven by Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon had his best cup run he's had in a very long time this past weekend in Phoenix after putting the option tires on. And had it not been for a speeding penalty, there's a good chance that Ty Dillon maybe gets himself a top 5 or top 10 finish. He showed some decent speed at Phoenix, and it looks to bring that this weekend at Vegas. I'm not expecting too much from the number 10 team, but we'll see what Ty Dillon can do with the Colleague Racing team this weekend at Phoenix Raceway. Up next, I'll have the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin comes in this event with a lot of confidence as he's coming off of very much being close to picking up that first Cup win in nearly a year, going back to Dover in 2024. He looks for his first Cup win in 2025, but with the speed that Joe Gibbs Racing shown to start this year with Hamlin, I think he's got a good chance and opportunity to definitely pick up the win for sure. Up next, I'll have the 12th car for Team Penske. This one's going to be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney had probably his worst performance in the next-gen era at Phoenix, and he had, unfortunately, an engine failure at the end of the event. He's looking to bounce back and run really well, which historically Ryan Blaney's been pretty good at the spring race at this track and has been pretty competitive here in the past with Team Penske. He looks for a really good run this weekend and looks to get another points-paying win. He's looking for his first ever Cup win at this track. He looks to get it done for sure this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Up next up with the 16 car for Colleague Racing. This one's going to be driven by AJ Allmendinger. Now, AJ Allmendinger has been often up and down start in 2025 and has been very inconsistent at the start of the year. He's looking for a turnaround run, and I'm not really expecting much, though he has been good here in the Xfinity Series. He's won here a couple times. I'm not sure about the Cup program of him being a major factor. He looks to run really well this weekend. We'll see what AJ Allmendinger can do with Colleague Racing at Las Vegas. Up next, up the 17 car for RFK Racing. This one's going to be driven by Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher has been off to a pretty decent start in 2025 as he has scored 1 or 2 top 5s to start the season, including a top 5 finish this past weekend at Phoenix. He looks to continue to build that momentum, and Buescher's shown some decent speed to start the year. He'll be looking to pick up his first win in 2025 and get it done with the RFK Racing team this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway with the organization. Up next up with the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Chase Briscoe. After getting 100 points back this past week, he unfortunately got caught up in a crash at Phoenix Raceway. He's going to track though where honestly Joe Gibbs Racing's been pretty good, and the 19 car almost won this race in the spring 3 years ago. He'll be looking to pick up his first win with Joe Gibbs Racing. I think Briscoe has a solid shot and opportunity. If they could bring the pace and speed that Bell and Hamlin had, I think he will be a factor to win for sure. Up next, up with the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell's been on a roll to start 2025. He became the first driver to win 3 in a row in the next-gen era this past weekend at Phoenix and became the first driver to win 3 in a row since Kyle Larson in 2021. He's looking to make history by becoming the first driver to win 4 races in a row since 2007 when Jimmy Johnson last did it. He's going to have a good chance because he's been very good at Vegas and dominated the most recent race at the track. This is one of Bell's best tracks. He will be a factor for the win this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 21 car for the Wood Brothers? This one's going to be driven by Josh Berry. Josh Berry had a really strong run this past weekend at Phoenix and finished inside of the top 5. And I think this team is going to be carrying that confidence throughout the remainder of the year. I could see Berry contending for a top 10. Yes, he hasn't been very good here in the Cup Series at the track, but he does have an Xfinity Series win from 2022. He will have a solid chance and opportunity to do pretty good for sure this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next up the 22 car for Team Penske. This one's going to be driven by Joey Logano. Joey Logano is still looking for his first top 10 finish of 2025. The first driver that's the defending champion to not finish in the top 10 in the first 4 races, including according to NASCAR Insights. Logano's going to a track though where he's been really good, as he is the defending winner of the fall race at this track. Logano will be looking to pick up his first Cup win of 2025 and goes to a track where he definitely will be a factor to go to victory lane. Up next, up with the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This one's going to be driven by Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is coming off having not the best run after falling out of the race due to brake rotor at the end of the event failing. But Bubba Wallace is going to track where he does have, unfortunately, a little bit of bad history after right-rearing Kyle Larson down the straightaway 3 years ago. Luckily for Bubba, that's behind him at this point. He's looking for a really strong run this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. With the speed we've seen from 2311 Racing in the past, he could be a factor for a good run. Up next, up with the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by William Byron. William Byron is currently the points leader in the NASCAR Cup Series and has been very consistent throughout the 2025 season after finishing 6th at Phoenix. He will have a chance and opportunity to win as he won the sprint race at this track in 2023 and was pretty fast in both races last year. Byron looks to pick up his second win in 2025 and looks to join Christopher Bell as multi-time winners in the NASCAR Cup Series this year. Up next up with the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Todd Gillen. Todd Gillen had an okay performance this past weekend in Phoenix, finishing inside the top 20. And he hasn't had an up and down start to start 2025. He's looking to get a really strong finish, maybe get another top 10 like he did at Circuit Americas. He's looking for a great run. We'll see what Todd Gillen can do with the Front Row Motorsports team once again at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Up next up with the 35 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Riley Herbst. Now, Riley Herbst is coming off of unfortunately getting caught up in the big crash, ending his 3 straight races, finishing in 17th. He's going to a track where he's been pretty good at, is his hometown track, and he won the Xfinity Series race in 2023 in the fall race in dominating fashion. He'll have Sunny D as a sponsor for the event. I think that Herbst could have a decent chance and opportunity to run well, as this track's been really good for him the last couple years. Up next up with the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Zane Smith. Zane Smith is coming off having a really strong run this past weekend at Phoenix as he finished inside the top 10 for I believe the second time this year. Zane is looking for another really good run with the Front Row Motorsports team. They're continuing to show a lot of improvement and showing a lot more consistent on the speed. He looks for a great run this weekend and looks to get another top 10 for sure this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway with Front Row. Up next up with the 41 car for the Haas factory team. This will once again be driven by Cole Custer. Cole Custer's been off to not the best start in 2025 as he's had a couple finishes outside the top 30 to start the season. He's looking to turn around this weekend at a track where the Haas or Stewart Haas racing cars have shown speed in the past. We'll see what Cole Custer can do as he looks to get his first Cup Series win in 5 years at this point at Kentucky. He looks for a great run this weekend for sure at Las Vegas. Up next up with the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek is off to a much better start in 2025 compared to 2024 as he's had 3 top 15 finishes to start the season. There's more consistency in the cars. It seemed like Legacy showing a little bit more speed. And also he's going to be sponsored by the Backstreet Boys this weekend, which I think that's a really cool touch to the event. We'll see what John Hunter Nemechek can do with the Legacy Motor Club team this weekend. Up next up with the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by Eric Jones. Eric Jones had decent success in the past at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, including in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, but he's been up and down in the Cup Series in the past. He's looking for a really strong run this weekend with the Legacy Motor Club team and organization at a track where they show decent speed at times. We'll see what Eric Jones can do this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway with Legacy Motor Club. Up next up with the 45 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick is coming off having not the best performance, even though he had a fast car. He unfortunately had power steering issues at the end of the event, relegating into a finish outside of the top 20. He's looking for a turnaround run at a track where he unfortunately flipped upside down the last time we were here, but I think that he could be a solid factor for the win as a 2311 cars and finishing second in the spring event. He will definitely be a factor to go to victory lane. Up next up with the 47 car for Hayek Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has had a decent start to the 2025 season as he's had a couple top 20 finishes start the year, but he's going to a track in the Cup Series where he's not been as great. Now, I'm not sure Stenhouse is going to be a factor this week in any way, shape, or form. I expect some of that lack of speed we've kind of seen from JTG or Hayek in the past to kind of creep up. I think it's not going to be the best run for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Up next up with the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman's been off to a decent start, and actually pretty good start in 2025, as he's coming off of finishing inside of the top 7 at Phoenix, his first top 10 in quite some time. He's looking for a good run this weekend in Vegas. He won the spring race, of course, in 2022. And I think that speed he's shown to start the year will carry on throughout the rest of this season. Alex Bowman looks to continue a really strong run this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next up with the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing. This will once again be driven by Cody Ware. Cody Ware did struggle quite a bit this past weekend at Phoenix, but he did end up finishing inside the top 30, hanging the banner. He's going to track where he hasn't been as good in the past, and I don't expect the Rick Ware car to be that strong this weekend, as Rick Ware Racing has not been that great at this track in the past. We'll see what Cody Ware can do, though I'm not expecting much from Cody Ware in the 51 team this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Up next up with the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This is once going to be driven by Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is off to an abysmal start in 2025 that goes all the way back to 2024 when he ended the year on a really bad note. He is going to track where he's shown some pretty good speed in the past, but I'm definitely worried about Ty Gibbs and the number 54 team. I thought they make the playoffs this year. I know it's still early in the year, but they've got to turn the season around quickly. Otherwise, there's a good chance and possibility that he is not going to make the playoffs this year in the NASCAR Cup Series. Up next up with the 60 car for RFK Racing. This one once going to be driven by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece showed a lot of potential speed, but he did have the option tires on, but did finish inside the top 15. Ryan Preece has shown some stuff throughout the beginning of the year. He did get a stage win, of course, at Circuit of Americas, and comes into a weekend at a track where we saw some decent speed from SHR last year. I think he could have a chance to win with the RFK Racing team. We'll see what Ryan Preece can do with RFK, and looks to kind of get closer to his teammates this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Up next up with the 71 car for Spire Motorsports. This is once going to be driven by Michael McDowell. After 3 straight races of finishing inside of the top 15, McDowell unfortunately finished 21 or 22 laps down at Phoenix Raceway. McDowell's going to be coming to a track where he's qualified decently in the past, but hasn't always had the best finishes. If Spire could bring the speed they had at the beginning of last year and the beginning of the year, I think McDowell could get a great finish. We'll see what Michael McDowell can do as he looks to run really good this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, up with the 77 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Carson Hocevar. After a hot start in 2025, Carson Hocevar unfortunately got caught up in a crash at the end of the event, or in that big one that took place. He is going to a track where he's shown some speed in the Truck Series, and also had some decent speed last year in both races as well. Carson's looking for his the second top 5 finish of the year, and maybe also looking for his first career NASCAR Cup Series win this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway with Spire Motorsports. Up next up at the 88 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, Shane Van Gisbergen's coming off, unfortunately, getting caught up in the big pileup that happened on lap number 99. SVG is also coming to a track where historically he's not been that great in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Big news for him, though, is that Red Bull is going to sponsor him for the first of 5 races this year, so that Red Bull iconic car will be back on the track once again this weekend. He's looking for a turnaround run. If he could bring his speed he showed sometimes in the mile and a half in Xfinity, I could see SVG doing good, but I'm not sure how he's going to do considering the fact that he unfortunately got caught up in a crash or had some engine failures in both races last year. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez off to an abysmal start in 2025, as I believe he's finished outside of the top 15 in the last 3 straight races. He just has had a bad start to the year. He got caught up in a crash after Catherine Legge unfortunately spun out, and Daniel Suarez had nowhere to go while running inside of the top 10. I'm just not sure about Suarez currently at the moment, where the luck is at the moment for Suarez, but it's been a tough start to 2025. He'll look to turn around this weekend with Trackhouse, so I'm not sure if he's going to do that this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So, that is the interest for the 2025 Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Notifications on so that if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. What's your thoughts about the interest? Let me know. Let me know your early pick to win the Cup race at Las Vegas. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In about an hour or so from now, you're going to see the Truck Series race picks for Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Then tomorrow, you're going to see a NASCAR news video. Most likely, we got to talk about some Auto Club rumors that have been coming around as of late. And we also got to talk, of course, about the Xfinity Series race picks. And then, of course, on Thursday, we're going to have the Cup race picks for the Pennzoil 400 and the paint scheme video. And then on Friday, we'll have a NASCAR news video. We also will, of course, be doing the truck review. Then Saturday and Sunday, we have reactions to Xfinity and Cup. And there might be a Shane Van Gisbergen video dropping. Got content coming on people like Haley Deegan, Connor Zilish, Junior Motorsports, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, Eric Almirola, Chandler Smith, Cleese and Farrell, all the good stuff will be dropping on the channel relatively soon. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.